All right, you come to the section on assignability, section 7, line 84. And Mark, what the heck is all this stuff about?
So in Florida, a buyer has a right to assign a contract if the contract doesn't prohibit it. So in this section, sometimes when, like what we saw in 2004 to 2006, when the market's hot and there's no inventory, a buyer may just go in, put something under contract with the mindset, I'm going to find somebody else to pay me a premium, and then I'm going to assign the contract to them.
Because I have a legal document, an instrument
Correct.
that has value.
Yep. So I call this somewhat of a red flag section. If you are a seller and a buyer is checking that it's assignable, whether with or without release of liability, that should be a red flag to the seller to say, wait a second, what is going on here? And usually one of two things will happen. Like I said, the buyer's looking to flip the contract and assign it to somebody completely unrelated to him or their business.
It's a wholesaler.
Yep. Or a buyer may come in and say, listen, I may form an LLC, I may form a corporation, I'm not sure. I'm going to put the contract in my individual name, and then I want to assign it to the company that I haven't formed yet. If that's the case, not so much of a red flag for the seller, but what the seller would want to do under that case is in the additional paragraphs. Say, buyer has the right to sign only to a company that a buyer is a majority owner of. And that will weed out somebody who's lying to the seller, who's looking just to flip it.
Another scenario that could happen is adult child is overseas, military service, and parents are going under contract doing the shopping for them, and they would assign over. Once again, same situation, can assign as long as.
Right.
And specify that. You just don't want somebody coming in and I wrap up your contract and go see if I can shop it.
Yeah, so if you're a seller, you really want to see may not assign this contract, which is the third box.
Yeah.
If the seller is okay with them signing, then there's two options. One so let's say Mark Violet is the buyer and it says may assign and thereby be released from any further liability. That means when I assign my contract to somebody else, the seller has absolutely no rights to come to me. And that the seller would want to avoid. You want the buyer to be on the hook. So may assign but not release from liability. What that means is if the seller is saying I can assign to somebody else, but guess what? If something goes wrong, they can sue me or the other entity or person or whatever. So that's a much better option for the seller.
All right, for the buyer, what's the best option?
May assign and released.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's the best. But once again, if the intention is they're going to buy it for themselves, just go ahead and check may not assign. Or would you recommend?
Well, if you don't do anything, and remember, always put something. So if no box is checked, then buyer may not assign the contract. So
the default is you cannot.
Correct.
But in there,
I don't ever see a seller checking voluntarily boxes 1 or 2. So this could be maybe one of the scenarios where I'd say, you know what, you're better off not doing anything here.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Anything else on section 7?
Nope. Pretty simple.
Easy stuff. Hey, gang, made it through section 7. Some of the other ones get a little bit longer, a little bit hairier, but we're chopping through this, chunking through the contract step at a time. You're doing great. Lucky 7, you're there. We'll see you back for financing.